Tonight, finally coming home.
I didn't sleep very much last night. You know, it's like the excitement, almost like Christmas Eve.
Checking in on those returning to Flin Flon a month after wildfires forced them out. Also tonight, senior swindled.
So unfortunately, his money has been lost.
A warning for Manitobans after a senior's 7-figure retirement savings disappears. Plus,
I didn't know what else I could do. I removed my hijab. I feel so humiliated.
why a Winnipeg woman is speaking out after being told to remove her hijab before boarding a flight, and the response from the airline.
CTV News. Live from downtown Winnipeg with Marilee Caruso.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A long nightmare for thousands of Flin Flon residents is finally over. Today, after 4 weeks away from their community, everyone was welcomed back to return to their homes in Flin Flon, which had been threatened by intense wildfires. With more on the emotional homecoming, CTV's Taylor Brock joins us now live in studio. Taylor, how are people feeling tonight as they settle back into their homes?
Well, Marilee, there's a lot of happy tears. There was a warm welcome in Flin Flon today, with fire trucks and local business owners lining the streets, greeting their returning neighbors. A woman who evacuated with her children, grandmother and dog says her husband stayed behind to fight the fire. Tonight, she's looking forward to sleeping in her own bed.
It is amazing that we survived. When you look at that fire map and you see the little circle of Flin Flon and all of the fire and smoke around it, it truly is incredible. Who would have thought? We actually thought that we might not be coming home to our community.
Photos on social media are showing long lineups heading back into Flin Flon. Today, buses were also departing from hotels, taking more people back home that way. When residents return, they won't be forced to handle everything on their own. Officials have set up a wellness center. It has food along with mental health services, plus disaster and recovery assistance.
They were warned in advance to please try and bring a couple of weeks worth of food if you can. Now that doesn't work for the people who have been taken out on buses so well, so that's one of the reasons why the wellness center is there to help with some basic necessities.
The city's mayor says no Flin Flon homes or businesses were lost in the fire.
That is great news, Taylor. What about the situation with the wildfire now? Do we know where it stands?
Well, it's still burning, Marilee, but it is contained. The fire is currently sitting near the Saskatchewan border. All right.
Thanks for the update, Taylor. We are learning more about the circumstances of a 911 outage earlier this year, during which a Fisher Branch man suffered a fatal heart attack and his family was unable to call for help. In its latest report to the CRTC, Telus says multiple issues led to the 38-hour outage in March. Telus says some of Bell's infrastructure failed that day, including its 911 network, which it leases. A technician was sent to investigate only minutes later. The company says that technician did not alert higher-ups the 911 system was compromised. 2 days later, Telus became aware of the problem, and it, along with Bell, worked together to bring the service back online. Telus says approximately 177 911 calls from 59 individual callers did not go through during that time. The telecoms company says it's since introduced a new call routing system which will ensure 911 calls go through even in the event Bell's network fails. Should that also fail, it says the calls will instead go to Telus-owned operators. Telus says the technician who initially responded to the incident was reprimanded, and all of its teams were reminded about 911 outage procedures. Bell is the parent company of CTV News. A Manitoba senior has lost millions of dollars to a cryptocurrency scam. And now the Manitoba Securities Commission wants to ensure more Manitobans don't end up in the same boat. With more on this, CTV's Joseph Bernacki joins us now live. Joseph, exactly how much money did this senior lose?
Marilee, the scammer stole $2 million from the Manitoba senior. As you can imagine, he's devastated after losing his life savings. And he isn't alone here. Experts say this type of fraud is on the rise. A Manitoban just lost his entire life savings.
Unfortunately, this investor, he's a senior. in Manitoba and unfortunately lost his life savings of $2 million.
According to Tyler Ritchie from the Manitoba Securities Commission, scammers used artificial intelligence to create a realistic-looking website named Fargo Investor with opportunities to invest in cryptocurrency. The trouble was, the business wasn't real.
They're not registered in Manitoba to offer investments, to trade or advise in securities. So unfortunately, his money has been lost.
Ritchie said it's unclear where the company was actually located, but says many of these scammers target Canadians from out of country. He said these types of scams begin with a fake ad on social media with opportunities for an individual to invest promoted by people with name recognition.
Often celebrities are used or well-known politicians to get credibility to the investment scam.
Ritchie said there's motivation for scammers to use cryptocurrency based on its popularity amongst the public. It's a concerning trend for staff monitoring investment fraud at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. In cases similar to this one, the fraudster offers to coach the victim into investing more money into their fake online platform.
They start with a small amount, $200, $300 to begin with, and in a lot of cases they get that first return on their investment back to convince them that it's a legitimate investment.
This process can take months, but in the end, it's always the same.
When it comes time to withdraw their funds, they're not able to.
Horncastle says investment fraud has been a real concern across the country, and financial losses continue to grow.
Overall reported loss to investment fraud is over $1 billion since 2022.
And that's only based on 5 to 10% of victims reporting to the center, according to Horncastle. Over 50% of those losses are tied specifically to crypto investment fraud. The Winnipeg Police Service tells us crypto investment fraud has resulted in more financial losses than any other fraud category. Staff from the Manitoba Securities Commission said there isn't a specific demographic in mind when it comes to targeting individuals for this type of scam. It could happen to anyone.
Scary. All right, Joseph, any idea if there are more victims from this company?
Marilee, Tyler Ritchie says they believe more people have been affected. There have been numerous alerts put out on this fake company, and they're encouraging people at this time to contact them if they believe they were a victim.
All right, thanks for this, Joseph. The Manitoba government is moving closer to changing a highway intersection where a bus crash 2 years ago killed 17 people. But there's controversy over the plan. The province is holding an open house tonight in Carberry, not far from where the minibus carrying 24 seniors from Dauphin tried to cross the Trans-Canada Highway and was hit by a semi. The province has been discussing 3 options: widening the median, turning the intersection into a roundabout, or banning left turns, forcing people to turn right before making a U-turn. Carberry Mayor Ray Muirhead says he wants an overpass built, an option the government has said it is not considering. CTV's Jeff Keel is in Carberry for that open house tonight. It just got underway a few minutes ago. Tune in to CTV News at 11:30 for the latest, or you can head to our website, ctvnewswinnipeg.ca. A Muslim woman says she was left helpless and humiliated after being forced to remove her hijab after boarding a Flair Airlines flight. To explain, CTV's Danton Unger joins us now live. Danton, what exactly happened here?
Well, Marilee, the family says they had no issues getting through security. It was only when they got to their gate that they say a Flair airline attendant wouldn't let this woman on the flight unless she removed her hijab, a move they say goes against federal procedures and violated their rights.
I feel so humiliated.
Kazi Amin has lived in Canada for nearly 30 years, and in that time, she says she's never experienced something like this.
I think it's 100% Islamophobia.
It happened last Friday at the Toronto Pearson Airport. Amin was returning to Winnipeg from a family trip to Bangladesh. She passed through security with no problems at all, but when she went to board her Flair Airlines flight, things took a turn.
They looked at the passport and screamed and said, "You don't look anything like your picture. What is this?"
Amin's daughter, Sarah Rida, says the attendant took issue with her mother's passport photo taken nearly 10 years ago before she started wearing a hijab.
She started to yell and say, "You have to take off your headscarf."
Despite explaining it's a religious covering and to remove it in public would be the equivalent of undressing, Amin says she was forced to take off her hijab right there at the gate in front of everyone.
I feel so helpless, so humiliated. So I didn't know what else I could do.
According to the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority, you don't have to remove a religious head covering unless it causes an alarm during screening. And even then, if a physical search is required, a private room should be made available. But Rida and Amin say none of these procedures were followed.
Because of ignorance, I think. They don't know. They didn't get training.
Flair Airlines CEO Maciej Wilk tells CTV News in a written statement, discrimination of any kind is not tolerated, and we're committed to ensuring every passenger is treated with dignity and respect. Wilk says the attendant in this case is employed by AGI, Flair's ground handling partner. He adds AGI has issued a formal apology to the passenger, and the employee involved is on leave pending a full investigation. It's a response Amin and Rida feel falls short.
I do want Flair to make a public apology to my mother and address how they're going to prevent this sort of behavior happening at the airports.
CTV News has reached out to AGI for comment and is awaiting a response.
So Danton, what does the family do now?
Well, Marilee, they've filed complaints with Flair Airlines and Transport Canada, and they're now looking for legal counsel. And they aren't alone. The National Council for Canadian Muslims says they're aware of the situation, calling it a serious violation of religious freedoms and basic rights. It says its legal team is involved, and it will be engaging further on this situation.
All right, thanks for this, Danton. The city and Tennis Canada are serving up an ace for the community in Garden City. That's Mayor Scott Gillingham, who hit the court to help officially open 6 newly restored tennis courts at Garden City Collegiate. It's one of 4 projects to receive funding through the Tennis Canada and National Bank Play Your Court program. The well-used courts had their playing surfaces upgraded and new benches, lights and nets installed. The court will be used by students during school hours and available for community use at other times of the day.
They are super packed. It's a busy space because folks are coming together to play tennis, to connect with their neighbors, to just have fun outdoors.
Work on the nearby basketball court was also completed as part of the project. The revitalization cost $400,000, a quarter of which came from the Play Your Court program. Daniel Hammerson standing by now with a first look at your Skywatch evening forecast. The mayor and his tennis crew timed that game just perfectly. They missed the rain we saw hit parts of the city today. What are you tracking tonight?
Well, a little bit of the same, Marilee. We did see some rain showers come through Winnipeg mid-afternoon. There is another system, as you can see, slightly south of us, and we could see that rolling through mid-evening before tapering off overnight. Up north, bit of a different story. Dry conditions, mid-20s today. I'll show you shortly when that area will receive some much needed rain. And speaking of that area, Lynn Lake is under an air quality warning from Environment Canada. They issued it yesterday. That is due to the wildfire smoke, and that continues in effect for tonight. So if you are up in Lynn Lake, make sure you're taking those necessary precautions and not spending too much time outside. And yeah, we're kind of watching that over the next little bit, but hopefully clear skies as we head into the weekend. Taking a look outside right now, 22 degrees here in Winnipeg. The wind out of the east-southeast at 4 kilometers per hour. The pressure is falling and the humidity sitting at 56%.
The Bathfitter Live Eye is brought to you by Bathfitter, your bath and shower experts for more than 40 years.
A teenage girl is in police custody tonight after a woman was stabbed in Osborne Village. It happened Monday around midnight on Roslyn Road near Osborne Street. Police say the woman was attacked from behind, stabbed, and had her cell phone stolen. Bystanders intervened and the suspect ran off. The woman was taken to hospital in critical condition but has since been upgraded to stable. A 17-year-old girl was arrested, but police believe there were others involved. Anyone with information is asked to give police a call. Manitoba Public Insurance is sounding the alarm over the high number of young people being seriously injured in crashes involving off-road vehicles. Over the past 5 years, 633 children were sent to ERs and 12 were killed. June marks Off-Road Vehicle Safety Month, and today MPI sent a message to families who have the vehicles. The data shows a lack of adult supervision and a lack of helmet use are 2 of the biggest factors in injuries. Under Manitoba law, youth between the ages of 14 and 16 must be supervised and accompanied by a parent or person at least 18 years old. Dr. Lynn Warda, a leading pediatric emergency physician in Winnipeg, helped collect the data.
I think there's quite low awareness. Unless you know someone who's been injured, or you work in our emergency department or for EMS or STARS or Medivacs or whatever, you work in a nursing station, then you know.
MPI has these safety tips for riders of any age. Always follow manufacturer's age guidelines based on the machine's power and size. Young riders should always have hands-on adult supervision. Always wear a DOT-approved helmet. Never carry passengers on single rider machines. You should avoid paved roads, ride in daylight on familiar terrain, and at safe speeds. And you should also stick to designated trails or areas where permission has been granted. Meantime, Manitoba Public Insurance is asking the Public Utilities Board to approve changes to your insurance rates and deductibles. MPI has applied for a 2.07% general rate increase. If approved, the public insurer says private passenger vehicle policies could go up by about $21 yearly on average. MPI is also looking to change the deductible for basic insurance from $750 to $1,000. It would also add a $750 option to its list of lower deductibles. And it also wants to add a new level 20, to the driver's safety rating. The PUB still has to consider the changes, which wouldn't take effect until April 1st, 2026. Well, if you've ever tried to tend a garden, you know it can be a challenge. For some, just keeping the plants alive is a win. But there are some green thumbs in our city with gardens that have to be seen to be believed. And soon you will be able to see those gardens. As CTV's Harrison Shin shows you, an upcoming event will give you a chance to tour some of Winnipeg's greatest gardens.
To make a garden like this come to life, you need more than just one person. For Esther Chen, it's a family affair and a way of life.
It's just a habit. Like, I like flowers and plants, and gardening is very rewarding because they will come back year after year.
Her garden wasn't like this when she first bought the place. She basically had to start from scratch.
When we first bought this house, the backyard is only like pure grass. There's nothing gardening at all. No flower beds, no shrubs, nothing.
So she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Her efforts included rescuing dying trees and shrubs from her customers' backyards, giving them another chance at life.
So lots of dying shrubs, if you taking care of them, they can actually revive.
Now her hard work is being rewarded. Chen's garden was named as one of the 14 Gardens of Distinction by Nature Manitoba. Her garden will be shown to the public this upcoming Saturday for the organization's fundraising event.
They get to take pictures, they get to learn about plants they've never seen. There's a lot of times where the gardeners have got plants that you will never see in the garden centers.
Now, Master Gardener Tim Evans is looking for the next hidden gardening legends. Nature Manitoba plans to visit the northeast corner of Winnipeg for the next edition of the Gardens of Distinction. But for now, it's Chen's time to shine.
So it will be a good show. So I hope more people can come to see what I can do.
Harrison Shin, CTV News, Winnipeg.
If you'd like to see Esther Chen's garden in person or any of the 14 Gardens of Distinction, just go to naturemanitoba.ca for all the details. Still to come tonight, a pledge from the Prime Minister to boost Canada's contribution to NATO.
The fact that we're working together is going to reduce the threat environment 10 years from now.
What it could cost Canadians. Plus, how much does it cost to rent in Winnipeg, and where do we stand compared to the rest of the country? Those stories just ahead. Rent in Winnipeg remains among the lowest in the country, but it's still gone up over the last year. According to Statistics Canada, the average asking rent for a two-bedroom apartment here in our city is now $1,600. That's up from $1,560. The most expensive place to rent remains Vancouver at more than $3,400 for a two-bedroom. Turning to the markets now, crude oil added 55 cents. The loonie, I should say, slipped to 72.80 cents U.S. Gold futures rose more than $9. The TSX lost 152 points. The Dow Jones dropped 160 points, while the Nasdaq gained 61 points. New forecasts suggest Canada's economy is set to take a hit this year because of the trade war with the U.S., but it won't be a worst-case scenario. The year actually started off strong, with businesses rushing orders to get ahead of trade barriers. But Deloitte Canada says a modest recession is likely to impact the country in the second and third quarters. The report links that outcome to uncertainty and weakness from U.S. tariffs taking effect. It also says unemployment could climb to 7.3% by fall. At the same time, economists say the downturn would have been much worse if Canada hadn't secured exemptions from tariffs on exports, which comply with the North American Trade Agreement. The Prime Minister is on his way back to Ottawa from the Netherlands after making a major commitment to boost Canada's contribution to NATO. Mark Carney has agreed Canada will almost double military defense spending to 5% of GDP, putting this country in line with 31 other NATO members. That news put a big smile on Donald Trump's face, the driving force behind this big development. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has more from The Hague.
Thank you very much. A highly anticipated historic sit-down for the NATO alliance started today with a clear message from Secretary General Mark Rutte.
For too long, one ally, the United States, carried too much of the burden of that commitment. And that changes today. President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible.
That has been Donald Trump's pitch as he drove the charge to increase the alliance's defense spending pledge.
NATO is going to become very strong with us.
Alliance members making official today what was expected, a new baseline spending target of 5% of GDP to be reached by 2035.
This is a significant commitment in response to significant threats to our security.
The fact that we are doing this today, the fact that we're united, the fact that the United States is fully behind this, the fact that we're working together is going to reduce the threat environment 10 years from now.
3.5% will have to go to core defense spending, with a requirement to spend another 1.5% on defense-related infrastructure investments. Carney says meeting the 5% commitment would mean earmarking $150 billion a year for defense.
So yes, we'll find gaps. We'll be transparent about that. We'll make up those gaps. So the overall context of the net increase in defense spending is much less than the headline from 2 to 5.
But key to today's new pledge from the alliance, a plan to review progress in 2029, ensuring it still meets the needs of the global security landscape.
Senior government officials tell us they see an opportunity then to address whether the breakdown of 3.5 and 1.5 could be balanced differently, a change they believe could be better for Canada. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, The Hague.
Donald Trump says the U.S. blew Iran's nuclear program to kingdom come. But tonight, sources say the attack only set back Iran's nuclear program by a few months. Perry Russom reports.
President Trump today adamant his attack against Iran obliterated their nuclear program.
It's blown up to kingdom come. The site has been demolished, and the whole thing is collapsed in a disaster.
It comes as sources tell ABC News a preliminary Pentagon report indicates at least 2 of Iran's nuclear facilities hit in the attack were probably not destroyed, and Iran's nuclear program was only set back by a few months. 2 people briefed on the classified preliminary report from the Defense Intelligence Agency say Iran's centrifuges might still be intact. The bombing sealed off at least 2 of Iran's nuclear facilities' entrances, but they did not destroy their underground structures. One source familiar with the initial intelligence says much of the enriched uranium was not destroyed because it was moved before the U.S. struck. Trump disputes that.
I think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move.
Another official says the report makes clear the findings are not conclusive, saying it would take days to weeks for answers. A key briefing tomorrow on Capitol Hill. The Senate will get a classified briefing on Iran after it had been postponed.
I think as members of Congress, the administration has an obligation to give us a very thorough and informed brief with the principles that can provide that information.
We still have to see how much the Trump administration decides to share with the senators tomorrow. After that briefing, the House gets their briefing on Friday. Perry Russom, ABC News, Washington.
Canadians are trying to get out of Iran and Israel. Canada has flown its first evacuation flight out of the Middle East. Foreign Affairs says there were 95 passengers on board the flight from Jordan to Athens. About 6,000 Canadians are registered
support Canadians and to advocate and ensure, to the best of our abilities, the safety and security of that region as a whole.
About 6,000 Canadians are registered in Israel and the West Bank. Another 6,000 are registered in Iran. Ottawa says so far it's helped get about 500 people out of the region. Closing arguments are expected to start tomorrow in the trial of Shaun Combs. The prosecution rested its case yesterday after 7 weeks of arguments and testimony. It took the defense less than an hour to present its case after Combs confirmed he would not take the stand. Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges including sex trafficking and racketeering. Before the closing arguments start, lawyers will meet with the judge to talk about instructions to the jury. 33-year-old Zohran Mamdani has cleared the first hurdle to become New York's first Muslim mayor.
My friends, we have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
Mamdani beat the perceived frontrunner, Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo was elected New York's governor for 3 terms before resigning amid accusations of sexual harassment. He was backed by the Democratic establishment, including Bill Clinton. India, Poland, and Hungary have sent astronauts into space for the first time in more than 40 years. They were en route to the International Space Station on a private flight. Axiom Space, a Houston company, arranged for the flight using a SpaceX Falcon rocket. The price per person is more than $65 million. The 3 countries are sharing the cost. The mission is expected to last 2 weeks. A disturbing crime that is becoming all too common.
We're receiving right now approximately 6 of these a day.
Sextortion, often targeting young boys, is on the rise. Why it's notoriously difficult to hold anyone responsible.
And if you're taking an extra long weekend with Canada Day right around the corner, some very good news. Lots of sunshine in the forecast throughout the weekend, including 29 on Canada Day here in Winnipeg.
The Manitoba High School Athletics Association is celebrating its Athletes of the Year.
On the male side, I'm excited to announce Magnus Carlos of Vincent Massey.
Magnus Carlos and Peyton Durand from Collège Jean Sauvé are the overall high school male and female athletes of the year. The award recognizes student athletes which exhibit excellence in their sports and are nominated by their school. Both played multiple sports at their schools and were leaders on and off the field.
I've just worked hard over the last 4 years and kind of just had fun playing all the sports I could, and the success just came with that.
I mean, it feels great. I mean, all the work I put in really pays off sometimes. So.
Playing sports on their university teams this fall, both of them will be doing. Other Athletes of the Year honored today include Kai Solomon and Chael Rosedeba of Hamiota Collegiate Institute, Colby Dura of Warren Collegiate Institute, Shannon Bodnaris of Collège Stonewall Collegiate, Kai Gadet of McGregor Collegiate Institute, and Junior Martin of Neelan High School.
CTV Skywatch weather brought to you by South Beach Casino and Resort. Visit southbeachcasino.ca.
Daniel Hammerson back now for your complete Skywatch forecast. We are in the midst of grad season at its peak. What are the conditions for all the photos that will be snapped this evening, Daniel?
Well, I drove past the ledge earlier today, and it looked like there was a lineup of grads just waiting for those photos. Now, they may have caught a little bit of rain earlier in the day, and we could see a few more showers pop in over the next few hours this evening before clearing overnight up north in the Flin Flon area. Pretty dry today. That is going to change. I'll tell you very shortly when we can expect to see some rain there. Sticking up there in Lynn Lake, there is an air quality warning Environment Canada issued yesterday. That is, of course, because of wildfire smoke in that region. Taking a look over the next few hours, could see those storms develop a little bit but relatively clear as we head overnight. But you can see right in the Flin Flon area, there is some weather developing. We're expecting to see some showers. Now, there is a risk of thunderstorms as well, and that's what we don't want. We want the rain, but we don't want the lightning strikes on the other side. As we move through Thursday, you can see lots of activity up north, but relatively clear here in the south. If you're heading to the Bomber game, that's great news for you. And as we move into Friday, the start of a long weekend for some folks, a lot of the same. Some systems in the north and pretty clear here in the south. Much the same throughout all of Friday. Not too interesting, folks. But tonight here in Winnipeg, low of 14, mostly clear, light winds, pretty variable, so really nice breeze. And then heading into tomorrow morning, 17 to start the day, plenty of sunshine with the wind coming out of the south. And in the afternoon, 25-degree high, mainly sunny, wind coming out of the south at 20 kilometers an hour. Perfect for football here in Winnipeg. UV index, though, tomorrow quite high, so slap on that sunscreen. Now, as we look around the province, up north in Churchill, high of 25 tomorrow, low of 14 tonight. Similar in Island Lake and the rest of the region. Now, as we look a little to the west of there, in Norway House, 23 tomorrow, low of 11 tonight. Chance of those thunderstorms as we look west to the Brandon area, 22. And here in Winnipeg tomorrow, high of 25. Plenty of sunshine on the way. Very similar story out there in northwest Ontario. As we take a look up north, and our first weather photo of the day. This one's from Robert Grenke out in the White Shell. Beautiful rainbow there. And our second one is coming from Kelly Leachy out in Glass. That's if you head right east from Winnipeg. Keep those photos coming. Send them into winnipegweather@ctv.ca.
Thanks, Daniel. A man has been sentenced in Nigeria to more than 70 years in prison. It's for his role in a sextortion case targeting a 14-year-old boy from British Columbia. Kevin Chirach has more.
Surrey's Robin Janjua was just 14 years old when he was targeted by someone posing online as a teenage girl. He was tricked into sending explicit images of himself over Instagram, then blackmailed for money. He later died by suicide. More than 2 years later, Nigerian authorities have sentenced Oluke Olalekan to 76 years in prison, convicted of 18 charges involving child pornography, money laundering, and attempted extortion. The RCMP worked with multiple foreign agencies in the sextortion case, a crime officials say is on the rise.
This is something we see more frequently in the last year.
According to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, teenage boys are a prime target.
We're receiving right now approximately 6 of these a day. And actually, as early as this week, we've noticed that we're receiving a new spike in sextortion cases that are happening.
And she says most cases go unreported. 3 years ago, a Dutch man was sentenced for sextorting a BC teen girl who also died by suicide. But bringing offenders to justice can be challenging, with many operating overseas.
We have agreements with some of the countries to help us with locating those offenders, but some we just can't go. So locating and arresting those offenders is pretty hard.
Another growing concern, criminals using artificial intelligence.
They are utilizing AI-generated types of applications to say, hey, I have this image of you. It's a nude image of you. If you do not comply with my demands, pay money, I will take this image and I will share it with all of your friends, all of your family.
Police say education and awareness are the best defense and urge parents to have open, difficult conversations with their children. And if they are targeted,
if you don't give them money, they'll go on to another target. They're looking for easy targets. So if you give them money, they're not going to stop. They're going to ask you again and again for more money.
The Canadian Centre for Child Protection is also calling for stronger regulations and wants tech companies to do more to stop offenders. Kevin Chirach, CTV News.
A Manitoban has become sick after eating tainted salami. Details of a meat recall coming up, and how AI could change how some cancers are diagnosed and treated. The CTV Medical Watch is next. Late last week, we learned of a massive data breach involving roughly 16 billion login accounts. Now, to put that in perspective, 16 billion is roughly double the amount of people on Earth, indicating many of us may have had information from more than one account leaked. So now might be a good time to reset your online passwords. But based on some new consumer identity trends report, a lot of us are making major mistakes when doing so. Joining me now to talk more about that is Greg Rainbird with Auth0 Greg, good to speak with you.
Good to speak with you too.
First, maybe just give us an idea of how concerned we are about identity theft, due to data breaches like the one we just learned of last week.
I think it's a concern for everybody, especially Canadians, and there's a lot of interesting data that's just come out of the report that you just mentioned. Specifically, around 76% of all Canadians would actually stop doing business with any organization after a data breach. So I would say it's critical, not just from a business perspective, but also a Canadian consumer perspective.
Well, passwords alone won't protect us. They can help. I'm curious what common mistakes you found many people are making when it comes to passwords that are leaving us vulnerable to breaches like this.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conversation to have. There's some of the results from our survey, at least, show that nearly 67% of Canadians across Canada are incredibly concerned about identity fraud, yet 65% of them are still using the same passwords over and over again across multiple accounts. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the complexity of remembering different passwords and having that on your shoulders every single time you log in. So there are ways, obviously, as an identity company here at Okta, we're helping people look towards the future around education around identity, but also providing them with new measures such as passwordless access, which includes biometrics.
Maybe give us some information about that, because I know when I heard about this, the first thing on my mind was I need to change all my passwords. Give me some advice, and those watching advice. What are some best practices to, make us more protected against breaches and fraud?
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that. I actually had exactly the same conversation with my partner over dinner last night around the ease of using the same password with every single account that we access. So I think number one goes towards please don't use the same password for every single account that you're going to access, but also the education around making sure that individuals are properly educated around using biometrics such as fingerprint to access their data that they're looking to do through different web services, and then also utilizing things like biometrics and passwordless access, which is something that here at Okta we're extremely focused on, and making sure that that information gets out to market quickly so that individuals can adopt it.
You gave a little bit of data from your study about, the impact to businesses. How damaging can a breach be to their bottom line and their future?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a question that we get very often, obviously working in the identity space. So just to give you a couple of numbers, almost 3/4 of Canadians say that they would actually stop doing business with an organization after a data breach. Now, the compelling information around that is that only 1/3 of them say, or over 1/3 of them say, that they were actually very unlikely to return to that organization after they've made sure that they've put the right practices in place. So in an increasingly digital world, trust is everything, and identity really is at the heart of it. So back to the research again, shows that Canadians won't really stick around after a data breach, and for many, once the trust is broken, it's gone for good. So incredibly impactful.
Yeah, a bit of a wake-up call last week. Greg, thanks so much for the tips. It was great speaking with you.
Of course, thank you so much.
More people have fallen ill in the 2 weeks since a brand of salami was recalled over possible salmonella contamination, including a Manitoban. The Public Health Agency of Canada says 72 people have become sick after eating the salami, which was recalled on June 10th. At the time, only 57 illnesses had been reported. The recall affects Rhea brand Genoa salami sweet, Rhea brand Genoa salami hot, and Bona brand mild Genoa salami. 7 people have been hospitalized. The agency didn't say whether that includes the person from Manitoba. Salmonella is a foodborne bacterial illness which can result in severe and potentially deadly infections. A new study suggests childhood vaccination efforts are slowing globally and in some cases reversing. The report published in The Lancet says over the past 5 decades, the WHO's expanded program on immunization has vaccinated more than 4 billion children, preventing countless cases of tuberculosis, measles, polio, diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. But after the COVID-19 pandemic coverage dropped, nearly 15.5 million children missed out on the whooping cough and measles vaccine, and nearly 16 million failed to get vaccinated against polio. Experts say the pandemic slowed vaccination efforts as more people stayed home, but other obstacles include violent conflicts, migration, and vaccine hesitancy. Researchers in Australia have revealed a new artificial intelligence tool which could change how some cancers are diagnosed and treated. The team at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research says it's developed an AI tool that identified 5 distinct types of cells within tumors. Tumors are made up of different cells that respond differently to treatment and can often lead to worse outcomes for cancer patients. But prior to this tool, the team says researchers haven't been able to clearly classify those differences. The authors say the findings will make it easier to find therapies to better target all types of tumor cells. The research was published in the journal Cancer Discovery.
Medical Watch is brought to you by Manukin Koster Denture Clinic.
Osborne Village is going to come to life this weekend. Daniel has those details on the way.
The music of the night.
Plus, a concert celebrating the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber is coming to Winnipeg. How you can get tickets next.
Spotlight, sponsored by the Casinos of Winnipeg, presenting Brett Kissel.
A concert celebrating some of the most memorable musicals of all time is coming to Winnipeg.
And listen to the music of the night.
Music of the Night, a concert celebration of Andrew Lloyd Webber's greatest hits, is slated for the Centennial Concert Hall on September 20th with a live band and incredible celebrated singers. You can enjoy Andrew Lloyd Webber's most iconic theatrical music, including selections from Phantom of the Opera, Evita, and Cats. Tickets are on sale now. Just visit centennialconcerthall.com. And you won't have to travel far for this music festival. More than 30 different performers are gearing up to take over Osborne Village this weekend. That's local electronic music duo French Class, and they're just one of the many acts you can expect to see. Others include Calgary hip-hop duo Cartel Madras, Winnipeg jazz group Amarula, singer-songwriter Kim Mortal, and the ever-popular Dirty Catfish Brass Band. 6 Osborne venues will be opening their doors for the event. There's also going to be 2 outdoor locations.
Everybody's hoping to, show off how vibrant Osborne is. There's been a lot of naysayers saying, oh, Osborne is dying, all that kind of stuff, but really it's not. It's thriving, and we have so many different amazing businesses, everything from, like little restaurants and cafes to beautiful courtyards, which is one of the venues.
Village Music Fest runs 8:30 to midnight Friday and 1 p.m. to midnight Saturday. You can find the full schedule by going to osbornevillagebiz.com. And the life and times of Billy Joel are chronicled in a new 2-part documentary.
I'm late, but I'm here right now.
It's called Billy Joel, and So It Goes. Part 1 debuts on HBO and HBO Max on July 18th, with the second installment coming a week later. The documentary is built around new exclusive in-depth interviews with Joel, his family, and some of his famous musical collaborators. And your primetime lineup starts at 7 with Master Chef, followed by Gordon Ramsay's Secret Service. Then Battle of the Generations wraps up the night at 9, only on CTV.
They're still a little shaky on their hooves. Meet the newest additions to Assiniboine Park Zoo after the break.
Women's clothing provided by RW & Company. Salon services provided by S Antique Spa Salon.
Well, we hit 22 degrees here in Winnipeg, which is slightly lower than seasonal normals and a far cry from that 36.1 back in 1900. Now, looking over the next week, as I mentioned, some people may be taking a very long weekend with Canada Day right around the corner. And as you see, plenty of sunshine into the weekend, and Canada Day high of 29 here in Winnipeg with plenty of sun.
Looks good. Thanks, Danny. Assiniboine Park Zoo is adding to its herd.
Come on in to see the new baby.
Aren't they cute? Well, maybe that big guy doesn't think so, but I sure do. The zoo welcomed 2 baby reindeer last month, and you may spot them in the journey to Churchill on your next visit to the zoo. Navy was born May 1st to Mom Lucy. Cobalt was born May 27th to its mother Whitney. Now, both of the new babies are named for shades of blue to play off their dad's name. The zoo says all of them are doing well, and the babies are getting more comfortable with their surroundings, but because they're still so little, the zoo says they may need to stay in the barn away from the public from time to time. So you'll have to time your visit correctly.
You know, I'm curious what their dad's name is.
I know.
Shade of blue, right?
Do you have any ideas?
Maybe he's just Sky. Let's
I don't know.
Keep it simple.
We have to find that out. Somebody let us know. All right. That does it for us tonight. Have a great evening.